Hello my fellow bats, welcome back to my channel. For those of you who are new here, hi, my name is Mel. As I'm sure you can tell by the title of this video, I'm starting a new series on my channel that I'm super excited about. But this is exclusively for vampire stories. So let's just jump right into it. Why am I wearing a coat, you may not ask? Well, it's because I'm cold. And thankfully this is an aesthetically pleasing coat for the most part, so it's fine. All right, so also this should be obvious, but I will put everything that I'm using down in the description box for you guys. So in case you're curious about the makeup I'm wearing, that's where the info will be. So, okay, this one is kind of interesting for several reasons. Okay, first of all, this story was the first female vampire story, at least for sure in like prose fiction. So that's cool. Oh no, am I out of this? Oh, I think this foundation is too light for me. That's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna blend it out, right? Pretend, just act like everything's fine, and then I'm gonna use some other stuff I got. Okay, originally written in German. So now, while I was looking this up, there was like some, wow, y'all see this? Apparently there was like some debate about who wrote it, okay, which is kind of ridiculous, honestly. Some people were like, oh, it was written by Johann Ludwig Tieck. I'm pretty sure that's how you pronounce it. But now everyone's like, no, it was written by Ernst Raupak. Raupak. So I'm inclined to think it was written by Ernst. I should probably tell you the title, of what we're, of the story. The title is Wake Not the Dead, aka The Bride of the Grave. Cool, huh? I know. So I first came across the story in my vampire class because yes, I was so thrilled when I found out that CU Boulder had a class all about vampires. I was like, yes, please. I think specifically it was vampires in literature. So most of what we read was regarding literary vampires, but we did of course explore folkloric vampires, which is part of the reason why I wanted to start this series, because there's so much more to vampires than what mainstream culture and even literature has to offer, or what you see in those forms. Wow, this is like, I swear I know how to do my makeup, okay? Oh my gosh, this is just sad. Nothing matches. My ears are red, my neck is white. My face is half white and half orange. This story was written in 1823/1822 in German, obviously first, and then it was published in English in 1826. So that's cool. It's like really old. Not as old as some of the stories I'm gonna be talking about later in this series though, so that's cool. Because honestly, okay, I know I'm supposed to be talking about the story, but this is the first video in this series, so I'm allowed to talk about this stuff. Like, folkloric vampires are so different than literary vampires. If you even want to call them folkloric vampires, okay. If you ignore my ears, then I think it's fine, right? I hope so, because I'm not starting over. Moving on to the actual story. Okay, so there's this guy, this dude, his name is Walter. I read that and I was like, who names a character Walter anymore? Like, it's just funny. I love that name, the name Walter, but I just thought that was just like, it's funny. It's funny. Okay, oh, I was about to freak out. I was like, I don't have my eyebrow pencil. So there was this dude, his name is Walter, okay? And he just lost his wife. His wife's name is Bruno Hilda. So Walter and Brunhilde, okay, Brunhilde just died. And that's where the story opens up. Oh gosh. The story opens with Walter mourning the recent loss of his young wife. Jeez, my eyebrows took forever. All right, so anyways, as I said, so Walter's young wife just died, and Walter's young too right now, just so you know. So everyone's young. By young, I don't know how young, because it never talks about age in the story. So, wow, let me move my mirror so y'all can, you know, see my face. So that sucks. So Walter's like obviously super upset about it. He's like, I can't live without you, and just like all this mushy, oh my gosh, my life sucks. And I mean, obviously what you feel when you lose a loved one and all that stuff. And he's just like so heartbroken and grief-stricken. He just lost the love of his life, okay? And that's that. So that happens. But you know how, like, you know, I mean, Walter has needs, okay? And he ends up getting remarried, okay? And you know, she's pretty cool. So first of all, let me explain. Okay, so Brunhilde was his first wife, right? She died. Then Walter remarries, okay? And he marries a woman named Swanhilda. Hilarious, I know. So he marries Swanhilda. And let me just talk about the differences between Swanhilda and Brunhilde, okay? Swanhilda is like, she's blonde. She's blonde, okay? So she's all nice and normal and happy and she's very down to earth, and she's nice. I already said that. She's just nice, okay? Like, she's just different than Brunhilde. She's very down to earth, just, what's that word? Mildly tempered. She helps Walter basically run the household. She helps him get his life together. I hope y'all can hear me with the mic. Maybe I shouldn't wear this coat. I should just be cold, huh? So yeah, and they end up having 2 kids together. Well, okay, on to Brunhilde. So Brunhilde, unlike Swanhilde, was a brunette. Her hair was black, and she was a little more wild, I guess you could say, than Swanhilde was. And she ruled the household with a stricter hand, I suppose you could say, and she was just very different than Swanhilde. So Brunhilde kind of encouraged Walter's like wilder side. Walter was very, you know, how do I say it, adventurous, and like, you know how, like, I don't know how to say this without, I mean, you can't say anything nowadays without offending everyone. But you know, like, younger people typically tend to be a little more wild and passionate, for lack of a better word. Well, that's how Walter was. And so him and Brunhilde clicked very well in that way. So that's kind of cool, I guess. So that happened. But with Swanhilde, she kind of like brought Walter back down to earth, you know, like, hey, we got responsibilities. This is like real life. You ain't got time to be crazy. But he did love her, not as much as he loved Brunhilde. Okay, and Swanhilde was good for him, clearly, because she, you know. But of course, you never get over your first love, and Walter was like, I just want Brunhilde back. Like, I miss her. She was wild, crazy. We were wild and crazy together, okay? Like, I want my boo back. So he has this thing where he like goes to her grave at midnight. I don't know if it was every night. It was every night at first, and then he met Swanhilde, and then he kind of got over it, and they had 2 kids, a daughter and a son. The son was kind of like his dad, and the daughter was like her mom. So That's not important. Anyways, so he starts to visit her grave again. And of course, you know, it gotta be all dramatic. He visits her at midnight, right, where things are like, that's like prime time right there to visit your loved one's grave, your dead wife's grave. What am I doing? Okay. It just so happened, it's just great. Also, oh, I guess I don't know if we know where this, I don't think we know exactly where this takes place, so sorry about that, but it involves castles and mountains and all that. So, the cemetery is in like this weird mountain thing, and it's near this guy's castle. Whatever, cool. So he goes one night, one wonderful fateful night, while he's out mourning his love at her grave. A sorcerer just comes down from a mountain, and he's like, I'm gonna get me some herbs, because I guess herbs that grow in a cemetery graveyard amongst the dead have certain powers and abilities that are beneficial for what he's doing. So he's like, I'm gonna go get me some herbs. So he goes down to get his herbs. Okay, I'm sorry. He goes down to get his stuff, right, what he needs, and he comes across Walter, this poor man, mourning. I'm sorry, his first wife. And he's like, hey, that sucks, I'm sorry. They get into like this conversation about, you know, the dead. He's like, yo, why you mourning this person? We're all gonna die. Like, I'd be like, you ain't wrong, but I miss her, so I'll mourn if I want to. The whole time Walter's like, oh my gosh, I wish she were here. Oh my gosh, I wish she were back. Oh my gosh, I want her back. And he just keeps saying, also it's kind of, so it was written in German, right? But it was translated to English. So it's kind of like old English, okay? So it's like, thou wouldst, art, stuff like that, you know? So it's great to read. I will link it below if I remember. It's great. I loved reading it. It was fabulous, and there's like all these fun words in there. Anyways, okay, I need to get going. Okay, so and they get into this conversation. So the sorcerer's like, dude, why do you want her to come back to life? Like, calm down. You don't want me to do that for you. That's not what you want. You don't want her to come back from the dead because she'll be different. I mean, the title of the story is Wake Not the Dead, so you know obviously something bad's gonna happen. Like, the dead need to stay dead. Like, yeah, it sucks, but... And he's like, and Walter's like, wait, you can bring her back? And if I was a sorcerer, I would just like do a face palm and be like, wow, I'm an idiot. Like, why am I sitting here trying to teach this man a lesson? And he's like, dude, there's such a huge chasm, okay, between life and death. And he says, I can only build like this bridge thing, okay, between life and death, but I can't fill that chasm. Meaning, she comes back, you're gonna be missing some stuff, okay? Like, there's gonna be some stuff that's going on, okay? I'm sorry. So he's like, yeah, whatever, just bring her back. And the sorcerer's like, okay, I need you to think about this, okay? I'll read you what he says later, but he's like, you need to think about this, okay? He's like, hold up, think about it. So he tells him, okay, how about you think about it? And I think he said, sorry, I don't remember if it's the next night or a week later or something like that. He's like, after you've thought about it, come back and meet me here, okay? Same spot, same time, and we'll work it out from there. He's like, okay, fine, whatever. So he goes away, and obviously all he can think about is Bruno Hilda, and Swan Hilda can tell. She's like, something's going on, something ain't right. What's wrong with you? And so he just starts growing cold towards her, because obviously his mind is elsewhere. And he's just, that's like all he can think about. Okay, I think it was a week. I don't know. I'd have to check, but I'm too lazy right now. So, whatever amount of time that was goes by, right? And he meets back up with the sorcerer and he's like, dude, change her. What did he say? He was like, hast thou maturely considered? Yeah, okay, so, like, if you know people shouldn't be doing this in the first place, and if you're so, like, oh, don't do it, like, I understand free will and stuff, but at the end of the day, you're the one who has the power to do this. And if you don't want people to bring back the dead, then why are you offering? Just saying. It's fine. It's a story. It doesn't have to be perfect, I guess. So, that happens. And obviously Walter's like, dude, just do it. Bring her back. Yeah, I want her back. Da-da-da, right? And he says, restore to me the object of my ardent passion. It's great. I just love how stuff was written back then, dude. Why don't we write stuff like that anymore? Because we don't talk like that anymore. It's all emojis and LOLs and JKs. I sound old. Okay. I got tape, y'all. Just like good old times. I got tape. Remember when I used to use tape like all the time? I swear, I do at least one ratchet thing in every one of my videos. Where was I? So the sorcerer's just like, I don't know why he offered. Well, he didn't offer, but like, I don't know why he brought it up. Like, you know, if you say something, they're gonna want you to like. Anyways, so he tries to convince him, hey, think about this. This ain't right. Just let her rest, right? And Walter's like, yeah, but not in that cold grave. I want her to rest in my arms. I want her back with me. So the sorcerer's like, okay, I'm gonna send you away one more time to think about it one more time. I don't know why the sorcerer can't just leave. Like, why doesn't he just leave? You ain't gotta be there. You ain't got no obligation to him. Long story short, the sorcerer does end up bringing back Bruno Hilda. It's this big thing, okay? This big, like, intense scene. So he drew this circle around the grave. He said some sort of enchantment. The headstone moves and makes room for her to walk out. And then, like, oh, what does he do? He does something. He ends up, like, there's, like, a column of fire with the worms and the earth coming out, and then like a storm starts brewing, of course. Like, how perfect is that, right? And then you hear owls. So he spreads some of his herbs and stuff all up in there, and like the dirt comes out in like gusts, so that eventually all you see obviously is the coffin in there. If you like vampires, have you ever wondered like how the first vampire was created? Because it's like, you don't really hear about that. It's just kind of like they are, and then, you know, you're lucky if you get made into one or something. Like, a vampire has to make you into a vampire. But where did the first vampire come from? Well, folklore vampires, you get turned into a vampire based on how you died, or like if you were a thief and you died, then you turn into a vampire. Or if you got murdered in a terrible way, you turn into a vampire after you died. Stuff like that. There's way more to it, but briefly, that's how you would get turned into a vampire. And it wasn't all glamorous as it is now. He takes a skull filled with human blood in it, and he pours it over her into the grave or whatever. What does he say? He says, "Drink, sleeper, of this warm stream, that thy heart may again beat within thy bosom." So cool. So basically, she's risen from the dead. She walks out of the grave, right? And the sorcerer grabs her hand and he takes her over to Walter. And he's like, "Here's your boo thing." And he's like, "Oh my gosh, thank you." And the sorcerer's like, "But if you need me for anything, if you know what I'm saying, I'll be in the mountains at the place where 3 roads meet." Yep. Cause I guess roads didn't have names back then or something. Anyways, so she gets dressed because like after she's risen from the dead, there's like this random black horse there with clothes for her to wear that I guess the sorcerer made appear or something. That wasn't really clear how those things got there, but I guess it didn't matter. So she's like, okay, we need to go. So take me to your castle. So I guess Walter has two, oh my gosh, places where he's living. So there's like the place where he's living with his family, right? And then he has a castle in the mountains somewhere. I would too. That'd be so cool. And so he takes her to his castle where they just kind of hang out until she's better or fully alive, I guess. Like fully rejuvenated, if that's what you want to call it. Fully undead. So he's kind of like in this trance, right? Not really. I mean, he still knows what he's doing, kind of, but he's just enraptured by her. It's like she's even better than she was before. Like her voice is music to his ears, and it's just so soothing, and everything's so nice, you know. Okay, I think it would be wise for me to just take a second and do the other eye like this. So she's fully back to life, so to speak, right? And Walter's excited. He just wants to sleep with her, basically. And she's like, hold up. You didn't raise me back from the dead to be your little concubine, your little thing on the side. I know you got a girl at home, get rid of her, and then you can have me. So he's like, okay. So I just feel so bad for Swanhilda right now, because like she did all that work. She helped him, you know, recover from all of his grief and all that, and she bore him 2 kids. She's been taking care of the house because he can't take care of his own house, and he was like a hot mess, and she basically helped him out, and now he's just gonna be like, yeah, it's over. Like, so he goes back home, right, and he tells him and Swanhilda just get to the point where it's not working, like emotionally either, and it's to the point where he's just very cold to her and distant, and she's just kind of like, okay, this sucks. She still takes care of the house and everything, but they aren't as affectionate with each other as they used to be, so that sucks. He still loves the children though, so he still treats the children the same for the most part. It's just Swanhilda that he is no longer interested in, unfortunately. And so he one day just hands her separation papers, is what they're called back then, apparently. He hands her separation papers. He's like, yeah, this isn't working. And she's like, and she takes it very well. She takes it like a woman. But she takes it very well, like a lady. And she's like, she's basically like, yeah, I knew it. Like, I knew this was gonna come. I knew this was happening. And she's like, I know why. She's like, I see that you've been going to Brunhilde's grave, and I saw a little something happening in the sky and stuff. And she warns him too. She's like, just be careful, don't be stupid. That's basically what everyone's telling him right now. It's a little too late for that, but whatever. Also, back then, according to the laws where they lived, I assume this is Germany, I don't know, at that time where they lived, if a husband and wife got separated, then the wife had to leave and the husband kept everything, of course. Like, did we expect anything less from this time? So she just went back home to her father, basically. And she had to leave the children behind. I was like, that's so wrong. That's so messed up. Like, how you gonna come back and be like, this ain't working, leave, but you can't bring your children? Like, wow. She gave how many years? How much time? Dealing with your crazy self. It's a good thing I wasn't alive back then. So he brings Brunhilda back to her old abode. And so what Walter tells the people, his servants or whatever, he's like, hey, I met this cool lady. And so he comes up with, he's so stupid. He comes up with this story. He's like, hey, I met this wonderful, beautiful woman. I know Swanhilda and I are separated, but it's because I met this girl, y'all. And she looks almost, she's so I married her because she's so much like Bruno Hilda. That's what he tells the servants, right? And like not even 7 days after, well, exactly 7 days after him and 7 days after Walter and Swanhilda separated, Walter and Brunhilde, I guess, remarried, and he brought her home, and the servants are immediately like, nah, that ain't right, that's her, that ain't right. And they're all like, so remember how I told you before how Brunhilde would like rule the household with an iron fist, kind of like she was very like demanding, she was hardcore, like she probably talked down to them, I guess. It didn't give too much information, but the servants didn't like her, and they were also afraid of her because they're like, this girl back from the dead, I can't believe this. Also, she obviously did not care about Walter's kids like at all. She just left them to the care of the people who Swanhilda left there to take care of the kids, like servants, I guess, like nannies, governesses, whatever. Some interesting stuff. So right now you're just like, okay, so how is she a vampire, right? Because right now it just sounds like she was just brought back from the dead and that's it. True, but she doesn't wear, I found this interesting because it's kind of the opposite now, but she never wears gold, she only wears silver, and she doesn't wear jewels, she only wears pearls. It made a point of saying that, the writer, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. Also, she doesn't walk around during the day, she only comes out like after the sun, like as the sun is setting, like when it's like darker, you know. And even before she got there, she never let Walter take her out in the full sunlight. You know how with vampirism, typically the vampire bites your neck and sucks your blood from your neck or whatever, typically. Well, she doesn't do that. It's so interesting. So her powers, like she doesn't sleep, first of all, which I think would be both great, but that would also suck. Like nowadays that would probably be okay, but back then, like before TV and internet and all that, it would probably friggin' suck. I'd go crazy. Anyways, so the way she has this thing. Oh, I messed up. I can't do eyeliner while talking, you guys. When she breathes on you, it kind of like knocks you out. So like, and it puts you in like this deep sleep, like this deep trance-like sleep. And while you're out, you're dreaming about the best things. You have like some of the best dreams on the planet that you've ever had, which I thought was so interesting. And then you wake up and you feel weaker than you were before, obviously. And obviously if she's feeding off of you, you're just gonna keep getting weaker and weaker and weaker until you waste away and just die. So this started happening to like the youngins because she needed young blood full of vitality and passion and all that, right? Not just any blood will do for this girl. So she obviously, one by one, the servants and villagers' children start wasting away and dying, and same with young servant girls and stuff like that, and people are freaking out. They're like, I ain't staying here. So eventually most everyone either dies or moves because they're like, nah, I ain't doing this no more. So now it's at the point where just Brunhilde, Walter, and the children and their governesses or teachers or whatever are there. So up until this point, Brunhilde hasn't given two pennies about Walter's children, but now obviously she's out of her life source. She needs she needs blood to keep going. So she, of course, turns to Walter's children. So now she starts paying attention to them. She starts loving up on them, acting like a mother. Obviously not having the best intentions. And the governesses are like freaking out, obviously, because they're like, oh my gosh, the kids are in danger, but they don't want to tell Walter anything because obviously he's just too... He ain't gonna pay no attention. He don't pay attention to nothing. He does not notice at all that the servants are gone, basically, and that like no one is basically living there anymore except them. And the governesses do try to bring it to his attention, kind of, but nothing comes of it. Yeah, she basically befriends the children and preys on them, and they do eventually die, unfortunately. And this kind of wakes Walter up in a way. Like, he did love his children, which was nice, I guess. No, that is nice. Why did I say I guess? It was good that he liked his children, that he loved his children. So yeah, that affected him, and it kind of, you know, brought him back down to earth, so to speak. And he's like, dang, where'd everybody go? He's like, dude, this is sketchy. This kind of isn't right. So, yeah. And and Brunhilde, this girl, she's like, why are you mad? You got me. Don't you love me more than your children, who you didn't even have with me? Like, what's wrong with you? And so she makes him feel bad, basically, about like mourning the loss of his children, which is messed up. And so, obviously, because the governesses moved out because they ain't got no reason to be there anymore. So obviously now the only person left to feed off of is Walter. And she does. So, you know, that happens. And so he's obviously getting weaker and weaker, and he notices this, and so to try and like bring back his vitality and get his blood pumping again like a young man, he you know, starts going hunting and stuff. And so one day while he's out in the woods, he I'll get better at this, you guys, I'm sorry, I'm just like concentrating. While he's out in the woods, he comes across this strange looking bird up in a tree, and he tries to shoot it. It's got something in its foot and it drops it for him, leaves it just as he's about to shoot the bird leaves this weird flower, and he's like, oh, I've never seen this before. So he grabs it, and it smells amazing, but it tastes terrible. And I think it compared it to wormwood, but worse. So he spit it out, threw it away, and the narrator was like, ha ha ha, that was dumb. What Walter didn't know about that particular great smelling, bad tasting flower thing was that it could protect him from Brunhilde's powers where, you know, she puts people to sleep or whatever. So he didn't know that, obviously. Like, why, like, whatever. Anyways, so that night, Brunhilde, you know, breathes on him or whatever, like, but instead of going into the kind of trance-like sleep where he has these wonderful dreams, he just sleeps naturally, normally, because he's tired, I guess, and he just falls asleep. But then in the middle of the night, he feels this sharp pain, and it makes him wake up, obviously, and what do you know, Brunhilde is there sucking blood from his bosom. Also, that was another thing. Brunhilde, she doesn't suck from the neck, she sucks from the bosom, so like near where the heart is, which I thought was interesting. I'm like, how's that gonna work? Because there's bone there. At least at the neck you have direct access, right? And he freaks out. He's like, what the heck is this? And he starts calling her like all kinds of things, like a monster, calling her unholy. And she's like, hold up, fool. You're the one who brought me back in the first place despite all the warnings. You're the one who did this. You're the one who made me what I am. You're the one who brought me back from the dead. Stop talking. Stop complaining. This is what I need to keep going for you who brought me back. Thank you. I didn't ask for that. So that's basically what she said. And she's obviously quite upset with him. And he's just like, so you're the one who took my children. She's like, hold up. You're the one who killed your children because you're the one who brought me back. Thank you very much. I'm just doing what I gotta do to keep living for you. Thank you. He just like runs away. Like he runs from her because it's crazy. She tries, she's like, oh, just come to me. It's fine. It's fine. It'll be fine. Just the two of us. I can, it's fine. But he runs away from her. He's freaking out. And he goes to his abandoned castle, wherever that is in the mountains. But he keeps, what happens, I don't know what exactly the span of time is, but what happens is whenever he falls asleep and he wakes up again, he's in Brunhilde's arms. It's like he can't get away from her. Because I guess part of what happened when he, with the aid of the sorcerer, brought her back from the dead was now they're like bonded. That also seems to be a thing in vampirism, not so much nowadays, but where the vampire is bonded to either family members or the person who brought them back or the person who turned them into a vampire, etc. So she's bonded to him and he's bonded to her, so he can't get away from her basically. And he's like, I don't know what to do. And then, of course, he remembers what the sorcerer said. And he's like, okay, I should probably find the sorcerer. And he finds him exactly where he said he would be. And the sorcerer's like, oh, okay, you ready? Because obviously he knew this would happen, I guess. Which is, it's like, why do it in the first place? But whatever. And so, like, Walter's like, oh my gosh, yes, please help me. And the sorcerer's like, I told you, fool. Gosh. Anyways, so he's like, it's fine. It's fine. All you need to do, okay, all you need to do is, hang on, I need to concentrate. All you need to do is just kill her, stab her in the heart with a dagger, which I will provide for you. But you have to do it, I think he said, when the moon is full, because she only sleeps a natural human kind of sleep once a month when the moon is full. I think that's what he said. And so he's like, you just gotta, and he said you have to do it with full resolution. You can't hesitate, you just have to do it. And also there's this thing you have to say. What do you have to say? Hang on, let me look at it. Oh, so when he stabs her, he has to say, I curse thee forever, like as he stabs her. I curse thee forever. And then as she's dying, he lays his hands on her and he says, he has to swear an oath. He has to say, never will I think of her with love, never recall her to mind intentionally, and should her image recur to my mind involuntarily, so will I exclaim to it, be thou accursed. So that's crazy, because like, how are you going to not think about that, right? Like the rest of your life, like, come on. It's just, you're going to think about it. What kind of rule, curse, whatever is that to make for killing a vampire? Anyways, so he does it. And the sorcerer's like, cool, I'm out. You ain't never going to see me again. So, of course, Walter just spends like, well, I actually don't know how long, but he spends probably years. I don't know. Honestly, it doesn't really make that clear, but obviously he's having a hard time not thinking about her. Like, how can you not, right? So he's just like in like a cycle of thinking and then saying, what did he have to say? Be thou accursed. So he's saying that like all the time, basically, because obviously also, if he doesn't say that, I forgot to mention this, if he doesn't say that, if he thinks about her and he doesn't say that, then she's gonna come back. from, she's just gonna come back. So, okay, we're getting close to the ending. Okay, I just have to say that the ending is weird. Like, I'm like, hold up. You know how, like, a lot of the time in Gothic literature, like, endings, they wrap up the ending so quickly that it doesn't always entirely make sense, and you're like, wait, what? I'm sorry. Why? How did that just happen? Like, where did that come from? Kind of thing. That's how I felt about this. So, anyways, okay, I have to do my inner corner. Let me just concentrate. So to try and take his mind off of it, he joins a war. It doesn't say what war, when it was. It just says that he joins the army and goes to war. But that doesn't work. If anything, that just makes it worse, because, you know, there's like blood everywhere and dead bodies, and every time he sees a body, he thinks of Bruno Hilda, and it's just like a mess. Okay, so he's at his wit's end. He doesn't know what to do. So he's like, maybe if I go back to Hilda, she can help me, you know, get over it like she did before. She can maybe give me some sanity, you know, that kind of thing. So he goes to her, and she's so sweet. He goes to her, and he's like, hey, I'm an idiot, I messed up, please help me. And so what she says, she's like, thy fault, she's so nice to him. She's like, thy folly, though it has caused me much sorrow, has never excited my resentment or my anger. But say, where are my children? And it just breaks my heart. But I am surprised, because I read that and I was like, oh, he's gonna lie to her and say, oh, they're just off somewhere, right? Like, I thought he would do that, but he didn't. He legit just told her the truth, and I was like, wow, good for him, because I know that must have been hard. But mess with a woman's children and game over. And then she was like, so he told her what happened, like a courageous man telling the truth. But yeah, she was like, she said, then we are sundered forever. And basically that means I ain't talking to you, I ain't got nothing to say for you, I ain't here for you, leave. Like, you got my children killed, heck yeah, I ain't doing nothing for you, deal with it, it's your problem. I would say that too. Kill my children, won't even let me have them. See, if he had let her have them, this wouldn't have happened in the first place. They would have been fine. Anyways, so of course, he's like heartbroken. I'm honestly surprised he didn't commit suicide, but also not really, because back then suicide was, well, even nowadays, well, I'm not saying suicide is good, but I'm saying, like, back then especially, it was widely believed, because of how religious people were back then, if you committed suicide, you were going to hell. So maybe that's why it didn't talk about that as a thought which crossed his mind. I thought he would commit suicide. I thought he would throw himself off a cliff or something, like throw himself on a sword, you know, that kind of thing. But he didn't. This is where it gets weird. So on his way home from being rejected, rightfully so, by Hilda, he runs into this. It's so weird. It's cool, but it's also weird. Let me read it to you. It's weird. Shortly after, he saw appear a female figure clad in black and mounted on a steed of the same color. Her attire was like that of a huntress, but instead of a falcon, she bore a raven on her hand, and she was attended by a gay troop of cavaliers and dames. Like, what? So, you know, they say hi, whatever, and she's like, hey, we need a place to rest. So he's like, yeah, just come home to my castle. And he's like so encouraged, because wow, for the first time in years since Brunhilde died, basically, or everything just went downhill, his castle is lively again. It's not depressing. And, you know, him and this girl, this mysterious random freaking woman, start, you know, hitting it off, and they're like, hey, this is the thing we got going here. We never learn her name, and basically her and her people just kind of end up staying there. So I guess they weren't really in a huge rush going anywhere, which is like, it's all just weird. Okay, hang on. Anyways, him and this woman obviously end up getting together, right? And they get married, everyone's like, yay, amazing. So on their wedding night, okay, she turns, let me just read it for you because it's freaking weird, okay? So it says, at length, Walter, heated with wine and love, conducted his bride into the nuptial chamber. But oh, the horror! Scarcely had he clasped her in his arms, ere she transformed herself into a monstrous serpent, which, entwining him in its horrid folds, crushed him to death. Flames crackled on every side of the apartment, and a few minutes after, the whole castle was enveloped in a blaze that consumed it entirely, while, as the walls fell in with a horrid crash, a voice exclaimed aloud, "Wake not the dead." So kind of cool, but also kind of weird, right? Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, what? I'm sorry. Was somewhere in there, was that like a version of Brunhilde coming back? Or was it like I'm trying to understand. Why did that happen? Did somewhere along the line he thought of Brunhilde and he just forgot to say, that'll be a curse, or whatever he was supposed to say? Like, I don't understand. Or was it just something that the sorcerer didn't mention? Like, was that eventually gonna happen to him? Do you know what I'm saying? Because I'm just trying to understand. Or maybe I'm not supposed to understand. So that was the first installment of my Vampires and Makeup series. If you liked it, please like it. Like, hit the like button. Let me know if there are any vampire stories out there that you would like me to talk about. I will not talk about Dracula. That might change maybe in the future, but I'd rather not, because there's already like so much out there. So if there's anything you'd like me, my goal with this is to also introduce the more obscure vampire stories, especially the ones that are they're presented more like cases. So like vampire cases, like a case of a vampire, where like, hey, this is like recorded historically, kind of like, hey, this person died this day, this time, whatever. All of this weird stuff happened. We went and stabbed him in the heart or did whatever, and then everything stopped. Like that kind of thing, because there's a lot of that, especially with like folklore vampires, and like even older than the 18th century. Especially, obviously, wonderfully in Eastern Europe. So anyways, let me know if there's any particular vampire or story that you would like me to talk about in this series, and I'm excited. This is fun, and yeah, I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.